All right, hello there. Let's start working on the bark plate that we are doing for our first project. So I'm just gonna go over how I set this up, and then we'll start actually creating this drawing over here. So just to start things off, this particular plate actually has this kind of mapped out construct version of it available already, done by Charles Bargue himself, and that's one reason why we like this as our project, because this here will help you out. Some of the bark plates have this already for you, but with some you will just have to do that yourself, and there are no hints on how to simplify this cast for you out there, so you just have to figure it out. But regardless, feel free to pick your own project. This one might be a good place to start. And just to begin with, of course, we'll be placing our papers side by side on a panel. I'm using a panel I have prepared for painting. This priming is on the other side, so I will paint on that later, but for now I feel it's the perfect size for this project. The plumb line is this vertical line over here. You can see I have placed it in the same position as on this example here, and it is something we will use to compare things to, and we make sure it is vertical in accordance to the panel we are fixing our drawings to. So let's get rid of this thing. So you can see I have placed the plumb line over here, and we try to place the drawing being this wide around the center of the paper. If you finish the drawing and then frame it, you will be able to crop it tighter, so you don't have to stress out too much about that. So first we place the plumb line. We do that by actually measuring from the side 2 points over here, then make sure with the ruler those points align. First you go over here and you make a mark on the top, you make a mark, and then you draw the line. Then you make sure the line actually goes through the points you decide. So how do we actually decide where to place the plumb line? I'll bring back this one. Because of the shadows, it's maybe a bit less clear on that one. But we try to find some vertical line that goes through multiple points that might be useful to us. So here we have the scapula on the right side of this torso falling right on this line, as well as this, I don't know, you could say it's a hollow point that is formed by the back muscles kind of arcing in, and then the lower back kind of straightening out. It coincides with this point right here, and then we have the right butt cheek falling on this line as well. So we have three things to actually fall right on the vertical there. So yeah, the more you have things that line up with this plumb line, the more you can compare with a very reliable way, at least with the vertical measurements. So you always know that this part is going to be placed exactly on the plumb line on our drawing here. So I know I can basically start mapping out the torso by ending the point on this line here. You will see what I mean in a moment, once I start actually measuring things. So then you see these marks over here, which are the tallest point and the lowest point on the drawing. And these two I have measured from the bottom of the board to this point. And well, from the bottom of the board to this point, which is in my eye the lowest point of this drawing. So I measure this, copy that measurement over here on the plumb line, and we take the measurement from the top to here and then put it on here. So that way we have a single measurement on our plumb line on the drawing, and we know nothing in the drawing will go above this point and nothing on the drawing will go below this point. So yeah, and just to mention, also with this plumb line over here, I have measured from this side of the board, and just to be sure, make sure this side that you're comparing against is actually, you know, straight. So it's not, you know, at an angle or, you know, very uneven, because obviously you're not gonna end up with anything reliable on here. You know, you can always compare just to a straight line, but you know, your whole drawing is gonna be wonky if you rely on something that is not straight at the start. So just take a little bit of extra time to set things up nicely. And as with all the projects coming forth, we want to, of course, make sure our foundation is good. So then we have something to rely on, and we don't have to, you know, second guess ourselves, you know, are we doing something wrong, or, you know, is the whole setup wrong? And yeah, that could lead to some trouble. All right, so the first step, we need our pencil and we need our string. As I said in the materials video, we want the string to be, you know, a little bit thicker, ideally, so, you know, it doesn't roll around our thumbs too much. It stays pretty much put. You know, the smaller the string, there's more slight movements, let's say. This is just an experience thing, because I tried a smaller string at first, you know, a thin one, and then ended up changing, you know, in the middle of my barks at school, because yeah, it was annoying, and you know, got my measurements wrong. So the other thing you will need, of course, is the needed eraser, and these are pretty much the tools you need for the job. Now, to start with, pencil grip. You hold the pencil like this when you're working, or, you know, from the other end of the pencil, because that way we can move it with our whole arm instead of, you know, with this writing sort of grip, we only can move our wrist really, and we end up pushing into the paper more than we like. There's, you know, less consistency in our lines. We want to keep things light at first. So, you know, if we make a very light mark here, that is obviously incorrect. We can just erase it and everything comes off. If we make a very, you know, I'll just make it on here, but, you know, if we make something very harsh like this, it's probably not coming fully off the paper, as, you know, it can score the paper even a little bit if we have a sharp point. So that is why we hold the pencil this way. It is easier to control. We can leave just, you know, the lightest tone on the paper, and that is easy to erase. That is number one thing when you're doing this. If the marks I make here seem a little dark to you, that is because I will boost up the contrast of this video so you actually see what I'm doing, because if I work super light and ghosty here, it might be the camera doesn't pick it up very nicely and it's gonna be a bit strenuous to watch. Okay, enough of that. Let's actually start measuring things. So the way we want to start off